All right, today we're going to talk about a huge hidden problem at the very heart of the glamorous art world. But the really wild part, the solution, the blueprint to fix it all, comes from a place you would never ever expect. We're talking industrial infrastructure and agricultural waste. Seriously.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Before we get to the solution, we have to really wrap our heads around the problem. Because it's big, and it's affecting artists and collectors in ways that are kind of shocking when you see it laid out.
So let me just start with this question. Imagine for a second, what if the overwhelming majority of all the creative work that people pour their hearts into, what if, as far as the market is concerned, it just doesn't exist?
Yeah, that's not a hypothetical. That number is real. Industry insiders estimate that a mind-boggling 90% of all art ever created never even makes it to a gallery wall. It never gets priced, it never gets sold, it's just out there, completely outside the economic system.
This whole phenomenon has a name, and it's perfect: invisible inventory. You can think of it like dark data in the science world. All this super valuable information that gets collected but never actually gets analyzed or published. It's just this massive reserve of culture, of potential financial value that's completely locked away. And we're not talking about a small corner of the market here. This has created what some people are calling a great disconnect, right in the middle of a global industry worth almost $68 billion. The system at its core is just fundamentally broken. So why? What's causing this?
So where is this massive disconnect coming from? Well, it turns out it all comes down to a major bottleneck in the system. It's an old-school model of gatekeepers that just can't handle the sheer amount of art being made today.
The main culprit here is the traditional gallery system, or as some critics have cleverly nicknamed it, the dowlery. It basically acts as this super high-friction middleman, a bottleneck that gets to decide who's seen and, well, who stays invisible.
Now get this. For the very few artists who actually manage to get through that gallery door, the gallery takes a whopping 50% commission. So on a $10,000 sale, $5,000 immediately goes to the gallery. The artist is often left with barely enough to even cover the cost of their materials. It's insane.
And this leads to something called the file drawer effect. See, a typical gallery can only really represent maybe 15 to 20 artists at a time. So what about everyone else? Their work literally piles up in their studios, creating this enormous inventory of cultural assets that has absolutely zero liquidity.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? It gets right to the heart of the valuation trap. In this old world, the art itself doesn't have any inherent financial value. It's literally worth nothing until one of these centralized gatekeepers gives it their blessing. It makes the entire market incredibly fragile and totally subjective.
So, okay, the system is clearly broken, but here's the twist. The blueprint for a new one comes from the world of decentralized infrastructure and, you're not going to believe this, industrial hemp.
I want you to meet DeReticular. They're this venture studio, and their whole mission is to replace fragile, centralized grids with independent, self-sufficient nodes. They think that any system that depends on a long-distance connection is fatally flawed. They call this dependency the line, and their job is to help you cut it.
And their core tech is this thing called RIOS, the Rural Infrastructure Operating System. It's basically an AI that acts like a civilization in a box. It manages the flow of everything: energy, data, and money for all these little off-grid nodes. So check out how this works in the real world. One of their projects, CultureGrade AI, was built to help farmers. See, these farmers had literal tons of agricultural waste, hemp biomass, that banks just saw as worthless junk. So the AI does three simple things. It scans the biomass, uses computer vision to verify its quality, and then instantly creates a fully compliant financial credit based on that value.
And here is the magic trick. This system takes something physical that everyone thought was trash, what economists call dead capital, and turns it into a transparent, liquid, and totally bankable asset. It's literally creating value where nobody thought there was any. Okay, are you starting to see the connection? What if we took that exact same logic, scan, verify, mint, and applied it to the art world's giant pile of invisible inventory?
Well, that's the whole idea behind CultureGrade AI. It's the same simple process. Instead of scanning biomass, you scan a piece of art. Instead of verifying its energy potential, you verify its provenance and what you could call social consensus. Community buzz, expert opinions, online chatter, all recorded transparently. And instead of a biocredit, it creates a real-world asset, or RWA, a digital token that represents real legal ownership of that physical piece of art.
And just look at the side-by-side comparison here. It's night and day. That crazy 50% commission, it gets replaced by a tiny protocol fee, maybe 2 to 5%. Validation moves from one single curator's opinion to the consensus of an entire community. The artist takes back control. And, most importantly, you create liquidity where before there was absolutely nothing.
And that liquidity comes from new concepts like Collector DAOs. The easiest way to think of these is like a crowdsourced museum. It's where hundreds or even thousands of people can pool their money together into a shared digital wallet and then vote on which art they want to acquire. This creates a brand new layer for the market that runs completely parallel to the old gallery system.
So when you put all of these pieces together, what does the art market of the future actually look like? Because this isn't just some fantasy. There are real, concrete plans to build this new system, and it honestly could change everything. In fact, there's already a roadmap. The very first alpha node, a physical vault where art can be scanned and verified, is planned for 2026. From there, the network expands, and by 2028, the goal is for this CultureGrade verification process to become the new gold standard for the whole industry. And a system like this just unlocks a whole wave of incredible new trends. Galleries don't go away, they just evolve. They can become nodes that physically host art for these collector DAOs. Patronage becomes tokenized, meaning you can invest in an artist's entire career, not just a single painting. And you'll have AI curators that can scan the network and spot new talent faster than any human ever could.
And that brings us to the core message, the whole philosophical shift captured right here. This new model is basically telling every creator out there, stop waiting for a gatekeeper to discover you. Build your own infrastructure, verify the value of your own assets, and own the network that connects you to your audience.
And that, of course, leaves us with one final, huge question to think about. What does the world actually look like when all of that invisible inventory is finally made visible? What happens when human creativity itself becomes a standardized, transparent, and globally liquid asset?